Welcome to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show, and thank you for being with us. Our topic, leadership, focuses on leaders such as yourselves. We believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned through practice and awareness. It is our hope that our conversation will help you become more reflective when it comes to your own leadership practices and enable you to leave a positive legacy. Our very special guest is Puja Talesara. Puja is a leadership coach. She runs and hosts the Leadership Diversified podcast, which has garnered in its first season over 200,000 viewership on LinkedIn and various other platforms. Puja is also a global Goodwill ambassador and has received an award for the excellence in millennial leadership. Puja, welcome to the show.
Hi, Biana. I'm so glad to be on your show.
I'm very happy that you are on my show, and you're the co-founder and co-podcaster for Leadership Diversified podcast. And I know that you're finishing your first season, and I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Thank you so much, Biana. So Leadership Demystified podcast, it was a podcast which was curated to understand and demystify the myths around leadership. So we have interviewed around 30 global leaders, different demographics, the guests who were leadership coach from millennial generation. So the entire podcast, at the end, we were trying to find out the leadership trends around the questions like what really makes a great leader. Is leadership is something which is innate or it can be cultivated? Difference between women leaders and their counterparts. So around those, it was a trend collection.
And you're only interviewing millennials, and it's for the millennials, correct?
So my passion is largely into coaching millennials. So I do a lot of work around millennials, Generation Z, and startup founders.
So what are the differences that you have found when we talk about leadership that millennials have and focus on versus the older generation?
That's a very interesting question. I'm an older millennial. So one of the prime differences that stands out is millennials want purpose. Purpose is something which drives a lot. So they would not accept anyone as their manager only with respect to authority bracket, but it has to be more purpose driven. It has to be someone wherein they feel that the passion is matching. So that becomes one of the important factors. And largely during my podcast as well, when we were interviewing millennials, we found that the clarity of purpose is there right from the beginning. They are more digital savvy, of course, but the interesting thing is, though they are digital savvy, they do focus on human integration, human touch as well.
So what you're saying to us, the millennials tend to not look at traditional bosses and not accept role of traditional bosses. Am I right about that?
Yes.
And how that has impacted the traditional boss sort of structure in organizations that are still operating on an old system where there is a boss and there are people that are just following direction.
So we had interviewed the traditional leaders as well as the millennial leaders. So traditional leaders are evolving and trying to see that working towards a connected generation or the connected leadership style finds the high engagement level, whereas the leaders who are just fixated to the traditional kind of leadership style, they would find the high disengagement in the workforce. And even the leaders, they need to be evolving, and reverse mentoring is something which I see mostly traditional leaders are now open to practicing, which is now helping in building in the trust and engagement level high. So the leaders need to evolve and need to work towards connected approach in both the generations.
You know, some leaders of older generation, they're willing to evolve, but some are not. They're not as flexible to change their leadership style. So what suggestions do you give to millennials when they're up against all style bosses? Because obviously, I assume they have to change, right?
Yes. So the first thing what I tell them is like each generation has their own beauty. So they need to cross-learn. They need to learn and leverage. For example, the mentoring. Mentoring is something which comes in very naturally to the older and the traditional generation. So that is something which they need to leverage on. And open communication and respect. That is something which is very important. Sometimes millennials are very assertive, and millennials wouldn't know that when they have moved from being assertive to aggressive. So a lot of self-awareness is very important. And I think self-awareness, in my opinion, it's a hallmark of good and authentic leadership. So yes, I tell them to look within, because in their capacity, there may be time that the traditional or the senior people would not be only the manager, but they can be even reportees. Like in my corporate tenure, I had senior people reporting to me. So it can be both the ways. So as a leader, one needs to be very respectful, have high empathy, and you need to have a learner mindset.
So I'd like to talk about being assertive because I am interested to get your thoughts on it. How do you walk the fine line of being assertive and do not appear overly aggressive?
So assertiveness would be having respect for yourself as well as respecting the other person. And listening is very important in being assertive, because the moment we trade off our listening, we don't give it an ear. That's the time we don't even know when we have crossed that line and appear to be aggressive.
So it seems to me that you have to be sensitive to how you appear to others.
Yes.
How do you measure that level of sensitivity? Because, some folks are more sensitive and are more aware than the others. Are there any tools that you give to your clients to say, you need to follow these particular steps so that you are more aware how you appear?
First thing I feel is the sensitivity starts when we are self-aware, and that plays a very important role in that. One needs to be open to feedback. One needs to be vulnerable and needs to voice out that, yes, these are the things I don't know. Sometimes as a leader, we are into that fear zone that we don't want to be vulnerable, don't want to share of that image. So leaders, they do not really know everything. It's okay to say that, there are certain things which I don't know. And one should be always open and receptive towards feedback. Be reflective, because when you have feedback, but you're not reflecting on those and you're not taking an action-oriented step, then the feedback would be futile. So self-awareness equals to taking feedback, reflection, and taking action-oriented steps in those directions.
And in order to get a feedback, the folks that you are working with, they need to feel not threatened to give you the feedback that you can benefit from. I worked for many organizations where folks would not speak up because they would be afraid not to be written up or not to look disrespectful towards their bosses or supervisors. What are your thoughts about that? How do you encourage your clients to encourage the people that they work with to speak up and not feel that they're going to be reprimanded or retaliated against?
So as a leader, you need to create kind of an environment which is very empowering, wherein people can come and they can give feedback. Or when they have faced some challenges or when they have failures, you don't reprimand them for that, but you say like, it's okay, it's a growth learning. So what leader really sees, the language, communication, that's the first step in creating the culture wherein people can come and give feedback. And once someone is giving the feedback, how do you really take it? So gestures, language, or communication, this was a few things where one can create that culture.
So you mentioned language, and actually I took a couple of leadership courses, and the language we learned was very particular. Are there any words that you give to your clients that they can use to make folks that they work with more comfortable around them?
Positive language is something which is very important. So in every sentence, if someone is giving an idea and you say like, but it's not applicable. So it just puts up the other person. The moment you say and, it really opens up the avenues. So one needs to when you're communicating with someone, I often say that communicate to connect with people.
So we need to say yes and be more open versus to use words such as but, right?
Absolutely.
I read your article on packing personal success suitcase. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit what should go into that personal success suitcase and what inspired you to write that article? Because I thought it was a very interesting article that you published on LinkedIn.
Thank you. So the inspiration from the article was like, while we are often very focused when we are traveling that we need to have the right kind of attire, because we want to be comfortable. And communication is something which is an oxygen to relationships wherein we connect with people. And it's very important to be mindful of what kind of things you are packing in, like the positive language, the assertiveness, and you are really shading off those limiting beliefs. So everything was been weaved around the belief system that you need to pack the empowering beliefs, the growth mindset, openness, accepting challenge, the growth mindset, and one needs to really unpack or leave behind the limiting beliefs or the anger. So it has to be something which propels you to give in your best. So everything is revolved around the empowering beliefs.
Interesting. And you also said that in that suitcase should go play. You should put sort of sense of being playful. Can you talk to us about the importance of being playful as you lead others?
Yes. Sometimes we tend to take life too serious, and I think we miss out on the balancing and integration. So when I say playful, it was one was yes, work-life integration. And second thing is when you fail, don't take it too seriously and don't get just bogged down by it. Take it as a learning and move forward.
So, as leaders and everyone in life experience a lot of setbacks. How do you maintain that sense of playfulness when life constantly is knocking you down?
I derive a lot of my inspiration, my leadership work from kids. So I see, when they are learning to walk, they fall down so many times, but they don't give up. Or they don't feel like, oh, I have fallen down, I'm not going to try it again. Because they are not operating from the fear zone, they're operating from the focus zone. Now, most of the times, we are very fearful of what other people are going to think about it. And the moment you are in the leadership position, you become more in the fear zone because you don't want people to judge or, evaluate. So the moment we step out from the fear zone to the focus zone and look at each challenges as growth, the breakthrough. And once a leader is open to learn, the things would change. So my advice and my suggestion is that operate from the focus zone, be a facilitator and a learner mindset.
So you believe that learning gets you out of that arrogant mindset of looking out and constantly thinking that people are making you wrong when you make a mistake?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, the focus is to be the better version of self each day. The focus is on progression, not mere perfection.
And how to evaluate your own success?
So each day, Biana, I just think that I need to be a better version of what I'm today. As a parent, as a coach, as a person. So I don't compete with people around. I just compete with myself. So each day, the focus is progression, and that's what the success is for me.
And I assume that because you're not competing with other people, your goals are very personal and meaningful to you.
Yes.
So what advice do you have to people that are raised to compete with others and to constantly be in the mindset, am I as good as she or he is?
I would say that when you compete, you're not stretching yourself, but you're entering in the zone of fear, stressfulness, and competitive mentality. And when you're in the stress and in the fear zone, you can't really give your best.
So what you're saying to us, you have to disassociate yourself from constantly comparing yourself to others.
Yes.
So you've been traveling a lot, and obviously you're in Singapore and I'm in New York. And do you feel that a leadership style is different where you are versus when you travel and talk to folks from different countries?
The leadership style, it has some flavor of the culture of the country and some country. I would find that the leadership style is very legacy focused. But one common thing, what I find is the leaders who are highly self-aware are the leaders who are respected. So, in fact, last week I was in a conference wherein we were talking about the 21st century leadership style. Has leadership style changed over the century? And my answer was like, yes, the leadership is packaged differently, but two principles would remain uniform, be it any century. The first one is that leadership is not only about you. It is about the people you are leading. And the second one is that the leadership starts with you, your personal leadership.
And what is your leadership style like?
My leadership style is facilitator. I facilitate because I work with different generations. I work in different projects like Leadership Diversified podcasts and webinars, which are two ventures, wherein I have people who are from different zones, different geographies, different age group. So it is more of facilitative leadership style, wherein I feel each one brings in the best. And as a leader, we need to just pick up the best, learn best, and contribute.
So what you're doing, you're adapting your leadership style to the folks you're working with.
Yes. And leadership has a lot of interconnectedness with the kind of person you are, your persona. So primarily that wouldn't change, but the small things in it would change. For example, depending on the people, sometimes you would feel like, yeah, you need to really push. Whereas in some you would feel like, yes, you just need to mentor and some you need to just give the guidelines. With respect to the people, you really flex your leadership muscle, but largely the leadership style has a lot to do with your persona as a person. Just minor adjustments would happen, which are the geography and the kind of people you are dealing with.
Any thoughts on generosity and leadership?
Generosity is very, very important. When I say generosity, it is being generous with respect to your time, with respect to resources, and most important, with a mindset. As a leader, you do not develop only followers, but develop great leaders as well. So this is something which is very important, and this comes only when the leader is very generous in his mindset and his approach, in the time and the resources.
And you're a coach, leadership coach. Why do you think it's important for folks to have coaches, and in particular leadership coaches, to guide them through the transitions?
For example, if we are running a race, we would have a coach, right? So life itself, it's a marathon, and you need a coach. You need a coach just to facilitate you. All of us, we are abundant. We have abundant potential in us. But sometimes that dark space comes in, and in the darkness. So the coach would help you uncover and to bring out your best. And why leadership coach? Because I feel leadership is not personal. Each one of us, we are leader. Every day we are demonstrating some kind of leadership. And I'm a huge advocate of personal leadership. So I feel prior to exhibiting an outward excellence, it all starts with inward excellence. You need to first focus on your inward, build in your inner core. Then only you can create the impact and touch the minds and souls and the hearts of people.
So it's leading from within, right?
Yes. Yes. Personal mastery, personal leadership. Yes.
And what are your thoughts on staying humble while you're leading others?
Staying humble is very important because when you're humble, you are grounded. Saying that, it's something which is very, very difficult to practice because often the ego or the power creeps in. So leaders who are humble, even if when we think, who are the leaders whom we really admire? When you think back, right from your childhood to your corporate or even now, are the leaders who are very humble, are the leaders who are approachable? So yes, leadership is all about connecting, all about inspiring. So if one needs to connect and inspire, then being humble is something very important.
And to summarize to our listeners, what would be the main characteristics that a leader needs to have to be a truly successful leader?
According to me, a leader needs to have is high self-awareness and a learner mindset.
And you mentioned mindset. How do you build that type of mindset?
It's a continuous effort. So the first thing starts when you're self-aware and when you're open to the feedback. So when you're self-aware, you're open to the feedback and you have the mission and you're passionate about it, then each day, all your efforts, all your actions, your conversations, your communication, everything needs to be aligned in that direction of building the abundance mindset.
And any thoughts for women leaders?
So, Biana, to give you a background, I was one of the youngest HR leader in my corporate tenure in one of the conservative manufacturing organizations. So during that stint, I felt like I was able to make it. That level is when women leaders are confident. I find that women wouldn't be confident, they wouldn't be assertive sometimes. So one needs to be confident, one needs to be assertive. And if you have contributed something while being humble, one needs to take the credit. Because sometimes women they don't really take credit of things they have done. So one needs to take credit. And we have intuitiveness, empathy, which comes naturally to women and which are now regarded as an important qualities of leaders. Sometimes we think it to be the drawback. Once you're highly self-aware and once you're clear about your mission in life, about your goal, and you're assertive, be networking. So women, to build up that network, that area of influence, it has to be a mixed gender because that's what is going to really help you rise up the ladder.
And what is your mission in life?
My mission in life is to create the communities of leaders who are inspiring, authentic in their approach, and they in turn create the other leaders.
And any final thoughts for us?
Yes, I would say inward excellence leads to the outward excellence. And one thing, which I want to really highlight, we all know that emotions drive people and people drive business. But often what is really focused on is only the business and those two components are left.
So how do you keep your emotions in check?
I think it's good to express the emotion. But what is something which may not be favorable is just to be completely swayed by your emotions. So it is good to be aware and to express because we all are humans and we are not robots. And that's what really helps your team to see your authentic style of leadership. But what is not good is taking an impulsive decision or just getting swayed by the emotions. So that discernment is very important. And that all comes with self-awareness and personal leadership.
And how can people learn about you or listen to your podcast? I know it's on LinkedIn, but any other way they can contact you?
So I'm available obviously on LinkedIn. Then I have a Facebook page, which is Leadership Demystified Webinars. And we are doing these initiatives. The first initiative, what we are doing is She Spark, which is especially focusing for women entrepreneurs and corporates. It's a boot camp which focuses on personal leadership and personal branding. The second initiative is Rewire. We are doing a major assignment in Africa, training around 1,000 executives, young leaders on personal leadership. And we have even launched a certification on personal leadership. And Leadership Demystified Webinars. It is a webinar series, which is a 90-minute webinar, wherein the focus is to give the qualitative life skill and leadership education at a very, very affordable price. So and besides this, I'm all gearing up for season 2 Leadership Demystified podcast.
For our listeners, just so they know, there's a podcast, but there is also a webinar to it, right?
Yes, so there is a podcast, and the second one is the Leadership Demystified webinar. So every month, we pick up a theme. For example, for this May, June, and till August, we have a theme of communication. So wherein we are focusing on how do you really communicate externally as well as how do you communicate within yourself. Because there are 2 levels of communication which happens. How do you communicate as a leader over various digital forms? So every month, Friday, we have webinars on 21st June and 3rd week of August, wherein we are collaborating with Amy Carroll, Dinah Buhar, and Gautam Gautam to bring in this communication webinar series.
Wonderful. And then folks can just tune in, I believe, on your platform to listen to that webinar, right?
Yes. This is on our Facebook. You just type Leadership Demystified Webinars, and there is a page and wherein one can get access to this.
Well, thank you so much, Puja, for being a guest on our show.
Thank you so much, Biana. I'm an absolute fan of your show and I really enjoyed it. It was such a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our very special guest was Puja Talesara, a leadership coach. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show. Remember that you're all leaders in your own rights, and the impact that you're meant to achieve starts with small acts of kindness, curiosity, and generosity. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and until next time.